Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Resilient Riches. We have Gabriel Boxer here, also known as the Kosher Guru.
Indeed.
That is going to talk to us about one thing is that he's done with this platform is he's used it to talk about Israel advocacy and pro-Jewish advocacy, but something that he really represents is Jewish businesses and Jewish pivot and building on what a platform you built to the next stage. So right now, you've been such a big advocate. We really appreciate what you're doing. I know you went into Gaza, which was only civilian that really went into Gaza, just to show the story of what you're doing.
We were in Khan Yunis for the day, embedded with San Khanim Paratrooper Mobility Unit 646, and I was stationed with Commander Yigal Dilmoni, and it was an insane experience, like being inside a entourage of Humvees going around Gaza, spent actually a few hours with the son of Hamas in Khan Yunis, an experience that I will never forget.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. And what I love about what you've done is you've used your platform, and you have a very nice platform.
Thank you.
And you've used your platform to advocate. And it's really incredible that people are doing that. You risk a lot when you do something like that, but also you can potentially gain a lot. And it's a defining moment in a life.
It's funny you said that, because I have lost a lot of followers, have lost a lot, but gained so much more, because pre-October 7th, I touched up a little bit of politics here and there because I did run for public office. I got into politics more and more in the past couple of years. It was always a passion dream of mine. But my platform was just really food related. You know, Jewish programs, food, travel. You know, it was making everything kosher fun. Then I was in Israel October 7th. Everything changed. Everything changed. And I said, you know what? Who am I? I'm Jewish and I'm proud. And you know what? That's it. Changing it up, being a proud Jew, telling the world, showcasing what's really going on in Israel, because I was there October 7th. I was there for days after. I've been back weeks upon weeks upon weeks. And it's time that we have more people, more Jewish people speaking up about who they are, what's going on, and how amazing it is to be Jewish and proud of the state of Israel.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And it's interesting that you took your platform and were able to go into Israel and to talk about this, because the Jews around the world are connected by one thing, and it's, yes, our religion and we're birthright and all this other stuff, but we're really connected about food. And I find that interesting, because that's probably why you became a hub, that people look to you, and you probably have followers in Israel, you have followers in Greece, you have followers around the world, because we all are really connected to the same food. I know that I can go anywhere in the world and find a kosher restaurant, and I know it's going to be the exact same food as it would be really anywhere else in the world. They try to copy the non-kosher food, but they really don't do a good job.
Depends where you go, but it's funny you said that, because quite a few years ago, I was on a mission. I was invited to be part of a government press office trip to Israel, and we had one day with the president of Israel. And in his house, one of the questions I brought up, and I'm not sure if he actually understood where I was coming from properly, or maybe my English and his English didn't click 100%, because we were talking about how to connect Jews around the world. We're talking about bringing more Jews together in the diaspora. And I said, there's one thing that connects us more than anything else, and it's food. It really is food. You could be an Ashkenazic Jew, a Sephardic Jew. You could be religious, not religious. And everybody will sort of go to bat for what they believe in and who they are. And that's fine. Everyone's entitled to be and have their own thought process and be on their own level of, we'll call it, Judaism. But the one thing, no matter where you go in the world, that is a common denominator, is kosher food. Kosher food. Depending if you're Sephardic, you go to your region in, whether it's North Africa, in the Middle East, you go to certain parts of Europe, you have your dishes, your food that brings people together, and you want to try each other's cuisine, each other's dishes, go to different restaurants. And whenever you go to a kosher restaurant, you go to certain ones in Manhattan, you'll see all walks of Jewish life in there, and they're all getting along. Why? Because they're eating.
Everybody likes a good falafel.
Yeah, that's very true.
Everybody likes.
It's funny you say that, because you know what? One of my takes on a falafel, and it's sad but true, the worst falafel in Israel is still better than the best falafel in America. Prove me wrong.
That's an excellent point, actually. I think that's very deep and very profound, and I would like to talk about that point. But talk to me about where did the Jewish cuisine come from? What's the history of Jewish cuisine? How did it get to the point where it is today? And also, I have a second question. there was an article that I saw years and years ago, and I could pull it up, was talking about the service in kosher restaurants in the U.S. being so tremendously poor. How is it that we can fix the service in the U.S. to make kosher restaurants as exciting as not kosher restaurants?
So let's go into your first question. The Jewish people throughout the years have been nomadic people. When the exiles happened in Israel, we were thrown out of Israel. There were always Jews living in Israel, but unfortunately, the majority of people were thrown out. Yeah, but let's not talk about Babylon and the Babylonian exile, but throughout all the exiles, Jews lived all over the world. They went to Europe. They went then to America, to North and South America. They were all over the Middle East and then into parts of India and that part of the world and China. If you look at the cuisines, really, because Jews were nomadic, you had to get and eat what you can in your community. If you have any Sephardic family or heritage, the Sephardic people always say, my food is so tasty, it's so amazing. And then they make fun of the Ashkenazim. Yes, I'm an Ashkenaz, can make fun of me, that our food is so bland, it has no flavor. Why is that? Well, Jews in Eastern Europe, or when they went to those European countries, you went to your local market and you bought the spices that was readily available to you. Salt, pepper, maybe in some parts some paprika, but very what you want to call bland food items. When you lived in other parts of the world and you're on that gold trail and that spice trail that went from parts of China, India, I'm not a historian, so throughout the Middle East, when you lived, let's say, in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, other Syria, other parts of the world, when you were living in exile or North Africa, you had spices of turmeric and other spices that are readily available and you cooked within your market. You just went shopping locally. So the cuisines were much different based on where you were so many years ago. But this is pre-Amazon, pre the internet. You couldn't, have anything delivered to your house. You can't just call up your local supermarket and say, send me Perrick spices or whatever, You could get all these spices from around the world now. You didn't have that. So the foods and the kosher foods manifested from what you got locally. And that's really for hundreds of years, not thousands, but hundreds of years, you ate what you could get locally, and that was the taste of the food.
So it's actually very interesting you say that, because everybody, our listeners know my wife is Sephardic. My mother-in-law is from Iran. We just had Purim.
I don't know why he says it
because
like
we're Canadian. And the Canadian heritage will come along with that. But we just had a Purim Suda at our house, Purim meal at our house, and we had some Sephardim over. And they're all talking about rice, the different colors of rice, red rice, yellow rice, green rice. It's all about the rice with the tadik, with the burnt part.
Yep.
But you've actually answered a very important question, because my mother-in-law, I don't know if you talked about that. She's been cooking for the soldiers in Israel. My wife has been going back and forth. And apparently those spices can only be bought here. My wife takes a full suitcase of spices to take with her, to take to Israel, which apparently doesn't have anything available to have for my mother-in-law, so she can add all the correct tasting in the food that she's cooking for the soldiers. And there was actually one funny event that she had cooked some Persian food, like the palau or whatever it was, whatever that is. And they sent it to the base, and the woman that accepted it, she says, "Oh, this looks like it's rotten." And she threw it in the garbage. Right?
What?
And my mother-in-law is
hundreds of soldiers, hundreds of meals.
And my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law says, what's going on here? What are you talking about? That's fresh. We just made that today. Made her go into the garbage and pull it out. That you didn't get it. They had to take it to
rule.
They had to take it to a 5 minute, whatever. In Persia, it's different. But we're not going to say Iran, so that Yair doesn't have a chance. And then had to take it to a different base to feed it to them. But it's so different, between Ashkenaz and Sephardim, and the Sephardim just make fun of us.
Well, my wife is also Persian, and my mother-in-law was telling me the other day, she goes, yeah, my whole life I was making fun of Ashkenazim. Oh, they're Ashkenazi, their food sucks, their food's this, their food's that. I go, here we are. This is what happens.
How awkward.
Karma is a bitch. I'm sorry to tell you, Norma June, karma's a bitch. But tell us, so going back to the second question, why is it that the service sucks?
So the article that you are mentioning and probably referencing was all over social media. A lot of people talking about it. I honestly think that it was not written very well, and was also a person that does not eat out at only kosher restaurants and experienced kosher restaurants. Let's talk about where we're located. In Manhattan right now, you have fantastic kosher restaurants on such a high level of service and experience. Yes, you're paying for it. Yes, they're more high-level restaurants. But I truly believe that the thought process of many years ago. And it probably was a thought process that people said, you know what, who cares about service? This is the owners and the management of the restaurants many years ago. Who cares about the service? Because you know what? We're the only game in town. If you're going to keep kosher, you're coming to us anyway. You got nowhere else to go. That changed. Look how many restaurants have opened up in the past, let's do 5 to 10 years, whether in Teaneck, along those strips over there, in the 5 towns, in Queens, go up down Coney Island Avenue, in Flatbush, in Brooklyn. Every other high-end restaurant, mid-level restaurants are opening up, fast food, takeout restaurants. You can no longer have that thought process where, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to focus on more my food and my price and not my service because I'm the only game in town. That thought process doesn't work anymore.
Well, you must be referring, there's that one restaurant, Williamsburg, I forget the name of it, but it's been around here like 60 years. And I think the waiter there has been there 60 years.
Gottlieb's, of course. One of my favorite restaurants.
That's like, the food is amazing. I mean, it's old school Ashkenaz, of course. But I think the waiter there was probably born, before the restaurant created 60 years ago. And everything, like he keeps everything in his head, doesn't write anything down. If you forget something, that's your loss. That's too bad for you.
But you still pay for it on the bill.
Of course.
It's very cheap, though. They really have not updated the prices. I had a birthday party there, and I brought a football player, so like a huge guy. I brought like a few of my friends who were gay and like a few just Jews, non-Jews, Indians. I just brought the whole community. I call them up in the morning to make a reservation. They goes, yeah, you're good. I said, I'm going to bring like 25 people there. Are you ready for me tonight? And said, yes, bring 25 people there. I get in, they go, you're not, what are you talking about? We don't have 25 people. So I'm asking some of the Hasidic guys to move to separate tables. We're moving their food. My friends taking videos. We're transferring tables. That's what happens. But going back
welcome to Williamsburg.
Welcome to Williamsburg.
Restaurant.
But I think this forms the foundation of the service of the waiters. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. Back in I don't want to call it the old days because it's not so many years ago, but in today's day and time, meaning come to current 2024 and look back X amount of years, the amount of restaurants that have popped up in the kosher scene everywhere, they can no longer have that thought process where I'm the only game in town. I'm the only pizza store, you're coming to me anywhere. Look in the 5 towns, just somewhere locally, or in Queens, New York, you go to Brooklyn, how many pizza stores are in your main, quote unquote, strip areas? Your downtown, your shopping areas. So back in the day where you were the only pizza store in town, it's either take it or leave it. You can no longer have that mentality anymore. And now when service was sort of like an afterthought, it's no longer that way. Service is now one of like the top, thought process of going into a restaurant. Besides in today's day and age, because of social media, marketing, and how it looks, and is it, everything's is it Instagram worthy? Can you get pictures and lighting? And everyone wants to make sure that everyone coming in can, snap their pictures and what they need and their reels. It's a whole different game in today's day and age. Not only in the kosher food scene, but in the food scene alone. Like you go to Panama City in Panama. One of my favorite places to go to. Love the community there. There's approximately in Panama City alone 40 food establishments, whether it's restaurants, bakeries, supermarkets, takeout places, and each one is more amazing than the next. And you go into them, you can't even tell that they're kosher. You can't tell. The decor alone, you feel like you're in some, influencer mansion heaven. They all built out based on when you're coming in, how will your pictures look? How will you look on your videos? And that's the new mentality of marketing and building out these restaurants first. And then service is now up there as well. As many years ago, as I said, service was an afterthought, not anymore.
It's amazing because it's using branding and branding first. It's the experience of coming into a restaurant. People think, oh, my wife who's not, the Persians don't typically go out to restaurants. It's just not or the Mashadi community. The small subsect in Iran never really went to restaurants. I took my wife's grandmother to the first restaurant she went to in 50 years. First time.
Where do they live?
In Great Neck. In Iran. Mentally, but in Great Neck in reality.
And Great Neck has some great Persian restaurants there.
But she hasn't been to a restaurant. She goes, why would I ever go to a restaurant? My father-in-law still thinks that like every massage parlor is going to give you a happy ending, like no matter what. I said I'm getting a massage. He goes, you can't cheat on your wife. This is my daughter. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, it's a whorehouse. I said, no, man in a chair. It's not a whorehouse.
Well, he's just maybe something in Asia, Thailand. We were there in the summer, and that's what's going on over there. That's for sure.
But tell us.
I just want to say make one comment that besides the service and the food still has to be good.
1,000%.
If the food is lousy, nobody's going to go. You might go one time, you might go 2 times, but after that, people aren't going to go.
Correct. As I said, you're no longer the only game in town.
So how are you telling restaurants to how are you telling now these restaurants that have been the only game in town, that have been legacy restaurants, like a Dougie's, for example, how are you telling them to update and get prepared for the next wave?
Well, I think I don't even have to tell them, because when I first started many years ago in the food industry, I've been catering, supermarkets, a lot of marketing and working with the restaurants hand in hand on their, almost like an, I don't want to call it an influencer or a consultant, but it's a lot more than that. But it's not even up to me or my responsibility anymore, because in the past few years, the restaurants that haven't listened to the people, think about listening to me, haven't listened to people, are no longer around or have changed, sold out. I believe right now, because of the onslaught of social media and the amounts of platforms of social media that is out there, they heard it. It's a wake-up call, and they either changed or went out of business.
So interesting. It's so fascinating how quickly things can change and how life changes and the Jewish culture changes. But do you find the food has changed?
The food has not changed per se in the type of chicken is chicken, fish is fish, meat is meat. But the qualities that are available right now, and the purveyors and the actual manufacturers are manufacturing and bringing in higher quality and making higher quality, going after higher quality products. At the same token, you still have your fast food places. You still have your burger joints. Now you have Smash House doing smash burgers and bringing to the kosher scene. We have sushi bars, but there's different sushi restaurants. There's your fast food takeout level, that's in the non-Jewish world also. And you go to some of these high-end places, and it's a sushi experience, an omakase experience, which is they're going to the market and getting you the highest quality of fish, where when you would go into your local, fishmonger or supermarket, it's either white fish or salmon, take it or leave it, flounder or tilapia. No, that's not what's going on in the kosher scene anymore. You have products that companies are going after, because the kosher market is billions of dollars in revenue every single year. And there's a lot of people out there who are not Jewish, and who, to them, keeping kosher is a clean process. It's cleaner food. They're going after it. There are companies that never thought of seeing if their products could be certified kosher. They're going after supervisions to come in and certify their products if they can be, and if they can be, to make them kosher certified, to get into that market that they were missing out on before. And you have what I believe, because of social media and everyone in the world seeing these dishes, these restaurants that are not kosher, there are innovators and entrepreneurs seeing how many people want it. We're going to make it kosher. You want a high-end steakhouse on this level with doing ABC? You want it so badly, you're going to pay for it? We're going to create it. We're going to make it happen. Growing up, Teaneck, Englewood, where did you ever think you're going to go to a restaurant, whether it be Manhattan, Miami Beach, wherever it is, that you're going to go out and pay $200, $300, $400 for a steak in a restaurant?
Yeah, it's
for
crazy.
One steak.
It's crazy.
Listen, I mean, you could talk about Teaneck itself. When we moved to Teaneck in the early 90s, there was, I think, 2 pizza stores and maybe a hamburger place, and that was it. Now it's the restaurant row. You got everything you want there. I mean, and I think also just thinking about it, I mean, you guys are a little younger than me, but, when I was growing up, you had Manischewitz wine, you had certain matzah. There wasn't, the market hadn't developed because the Jewish community wasn't able to afford it. It hadn't developed to that point. But now with this, over the last 30, 40 years, the explosion of the Jewish market and just the level of wealth that there is now is be able to afford it. My mother gave us Manischewitz wine. I mean, if you've ever had that, you don't have it again.
Let me ask you a question. Do you find I always had this thought that all these products have the OU on it, and it costs them money, obviously, to get it certified. Is the kosher market? I mean, yes, there's a lot of Jews out there, and yes, having Jews, 6-7 million consumers eating your products is a big deal. But most of them aren't keeping kosher. Is it worth it for these companies to pay the OU for the certification, to deal with all the compliance and all the other stuff for the kosher market that does eat it? Does it actually make a tangible difference?
And you got to pay also for someone to come on a regular basis.
I'm talking about products in Costco.
But even in their manufacturer, you got to pay part of the cost. And
the answer is yes. If you do any research on a quick Google search, the kosher market is billions of dollars. If they could tap into just a percentage of that, even a percentage, you guys are in the wealth management. What's 1% of a few $1 billion?
Yeah, a hell of a lot of money.
We don't have that much to do. We're not going out to all these clubs.
Let's say you corner 0.5%, 1%. So the few $1,000s you spent on your supervision fee, whatever it costs to supervise a year, there are a few visits or whatever, depending once again, if it's just a quote unquote popcorn product, a certain product, there's different rules and regulations, opposed to if your slaughterhouse or so on and so forth, depending on the involvement of the product and that needs to be supervised and the extent of the supervision on the product. But if you could tap into that billions of dollar market, just a small percentage, would you make that investment yourself?
I mean, it's an ROI, so it must be working. These are not stupid companies.
Correct.
Do you find that the kosher market and the kosher restaurants are actually profitable? Do you think it's a good business? Do you think how is the business being structured? Because I know Kolbe, for example, one of the biggest kosher chains, like really kosher restaurants out there, 10% of their business is actually their restaurants. 90% is in catering. Do you find that the Jewish market,
to throw Kolbe to get that great neck Mashadi Persian?
They closed a couple stores also.
Because they all went to catering.
Since COVID and this and that. But I actually tell a lot of people come to me because thank God, even like myself, I pivoted out of the food industry into more of the finance.
We should talk about that next.
We'll get to that in a second. But I used to tell everybody, even when I was in catering 7 days a week, 7 days, Shabbos. Yes, Shabbos, you're doing bar mitzvahs, Kaddish, we walking the shuls, setting up. You're working like a slave to the food industry. People don't realize, and I think Anthony Bourdain wrote it in his book, if I'm not mistaken, that's where I remember learning it, or it was the food critic from the New York Times. I forget where I read it, but it was one of those two books. While you're enjoying work and you're working all day, then at night you're going out and partying, having a good time and ordering your food. In the food industry, those restaurants or caterers are working all day to only at 6 o'clock or whenever it is you go in. That's when game time they're on. And now they're working really double shifts, double lives. They're preparing all day to only at nighttime where they really start working to serving you. So you're really a slave to your industry. Now, do I believe you make a lot more money in manufacturing? You have a product, distribution, manufacturing. You're selling, yes, it is volume-based, but I believe on the actual product side of it, it's much more profitable and businesses to deal with. Restaurants are not as profitable as people think. They're really not, especially if you're an owner-operator. You're taking a salary, whatever that salary is. You're a slave to your business. You're a slave to it. You have to love it. You have to love what you're doing. You have to really have a passion for the food industry to work all those hours. And it really is, if you think about it, a salary. Now, once again, if you have a more high-end restaurant and your cost is, and what you're charging is a little higher, opposed to if you're selling $10 burgers or hot dogs, or how much is a slice of pizza, how many slices do you have to sell to get to that. That's why people, like you said, have transitioned a lot into corporate catering. Unfortunately, in New York City, there are a few restaurants that were banking and making bank on corporate catering. When COVID happened and so many people went remote, a lot of those restaurants had to pivot. Some went out of business, some merged, some lost a lot of that corporate catering, where there were restaurants where they had 30, 40 people in staff of just delivery people a day, delivering to offices all over Manhattan. I don't want to mention anybody because a lot of people that I know, unfortunately, don't have that business anymore and they're hurting from it. But back in the day, catering for these restaurants, they made more on the actual operation of the restaurant.
Very interesting. Do you find that the kosher market is expanding or it's just subtracting? Is it becoming bigger or is it becoming smaller?
It's definitely expanding. Look at all the restaurants that keep opening up everywhere.
Isn't there less religious people that would eat kosher, or it just doesn't matter because the experience is so good now that it doesn't matter if you're less religious or more religious, you're going to go to a kosher restaurant?
So it's funny you say that. I actually see a big turning point since October 7th, where a lot more people who are not religious or not keeping kosher in the past 6 months have started keeping kosher. When they go out, they'll keep kosher, or in their house now, they'll only buy kosher products, believe it or not, and not to pivot only to what happened October 7th. But besides that, there are a lot of business meetings where if you keep kosher, you're not embarrassed. Back in the old days, a few years ago, you go to any restaurant and you would either eat nothing, a glass of water, or you have a double, triple wrapped, aluminum foil, whatever, from whoever was doing the catering. We'll just talk about Manhattan. Now you have so many high-end restaurants, from Wall Street Grill, Reserve Cut, Barnett. You could go on and on here in Manhattan. You're not embarrassed.
I've done that myself. Exactly.
You're not embarrassed to say to your non-Jewish.
Exactly. I'd say I have a networking meeting at the beginning. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to say. We would go. I would eat a salad or a drink or whatever. Now we go to a regular restaurant. We went I took them all to the sukkah. We were at the UN Grill. We were all sitting outside in the sukkah eating kosher food. It's fine.
You have no idea.
It's good.
My mother, who worked on the Wall Street area for many, many years at JP Morgan Chase, an insurance company, when she had a retirement party, she was the only religious kosher keeping person. I think there was one other Jewish person in her group. And they said to my mother, we want to take you out for lunch. It's, going away party. Where should we go? Mother said, Gabe, I'm in Wall Street. Where am I going? At that time, it was only really Reserve Cut that was open for lunch over there. She took over for her friends. My first time my mother was there, she couldn't believe there was a kosher restaurant. Everybody who was with them, by the way, had no idea it was a kosher restaurant until dessert.
Until the bill came.
Well, besides the bill.
No, when they ask for milk. If they ask for milk in their coffee.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Why can't I have milk?
If somebody said, that's exactly when two people said, no milk. What are you talking about? They had no idea they were in a kosher restaurant. And today, you don't have to be embarrassed.
Well, you get the oat milk now, or you get the fake milk now. You can have that too. But let's change over to
I wanted to ask
the
you
finance
questions.
side.
I want to ask you questions on. So you've been this influencer. You've been this person that's really been a food expert, and there was a lot to talk about for kosher food. But
expert, sharing my experiences.
Kosher guru. How about this? You're the kosher guru.
Okay, fine.
You want that?
I'll take it.
You'll take it. It's a good branding, actually. Oh, sorry, it's somebody ready to take it. But how did you pivot from going into this market and switching completely into the financial services space? I mean, cash advance is something incredible. Tell us about that transition. Tell us about what you're doing now.
So about 8-10 years ago, Saturday night after Shabbat for my Sephardi friends, Shabbos for my Ashkenaz friends.
Sabbath for my non-Jewish friends.
For the Syrians.
Sabbath. I was sitting home and I get a message, a call from someone who actually catered his son's bar mitzvah. I do a lot of not-for-profit chesed work, and he was a donor. And he says, Gabe, I'm doing a chopped competition in my house. I need a celebrity judge. Do you mind coming over? My friends would really appreciate it, my friends and family. Look at my wife. We're not doing anything this Saturday night. We're sitting on the couch watching TV. Sure, no problem. Let's take a ride, a mile down the street. Have a great event, very, very fun. At the end of the evening, we're sitting around on the couch talking. I was like, Gabe, what are you doing with yourself these days? I said, funny you asked. I'm always looking for new opportunities. He says, well, if you don't know, I'm in the merchant cash advance business. I have a funding company, and I'm looking to rebrand and grow. I'm like, great. To me, not that I even graduate any of these degrees. I went to school for, pre-law, poli-sci business. I'm like, cash advance, major markets, acquisitions, personal, whatever. I had no idea. I'm like, it's not for me. He says, no. What you built for Kosher Guru in the past few years, I want you to come take over my marketing department, help me rebrand. I'm like, that's very kind of you. It's a very nice compliment. We'll talk. We'll be in touch. Okay. 3-4 meetings later, in his office, he was in Brooklyn at the time. I took the job, took a position, was with him for a few years, and really, we rebranded. We went from, I think he was doing a few million up to, when I left, about over 9.5 million. We actually tripled the numbers in the funding a month, and I learned the whole industry, and I was like, this is fascinating. Everything I've taken in my marketing and implemented into the kosher market and kosher food world, and now, picked it up and brought it over here into this alternative finance space. I'm like, this is awesome. I've never been, in the big boy jobs here. It's always, fun kosher scene. And when you're working in kosher supermarkets or kosher restaurants, kosher king, it's a totally different non-corporate world. It is not even close to being.
We're happy you wore a sweatshirt today.
Thank you very much. It's Stress Down Friday. It's Casual Friday. Learned the industry. Actually had a headhunter reach out to me on LinkedIn from California. Went to work and help manage a company out in California. Spent a lot of time in the Valley area. Pre-COVID, came back, and I'm thinking, what's next? Another position, another job, and then I'm like, spent so many years helping other people grow their business, expand their business. It's time for me to make that that next move into having my own funding company. And my partner, Adam Schwartz, we know each other about 15 years, living in the same community, and he's more technology-based, and he shows me what he's working on, this platform, and the tech that he's building out of our own CRM, all of our own systems that we don't have to use anybody. He built them from the bottom up. He says, we want to bring this into the cash advance space based on the peer-to-peer lending, and I'll go into that. I'm like, this is insane. We need to do this together. No, I'm coming because we need to do this together. And we launched Merchant Marketplace, which is the only MCA, merchant cash advance company within the industry that has a Reg D with the SEC that allows us to do peer-to-peer investment with accredited investors. And real quick, what we do, if you're familiar with the merchant cash advance space, you're buying future receivables. Unfortunately, these are businesses that cannot get traditional banking. They don't have the credit for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's the cash advance world was it's really started with the farmers, because they would have to hire a serious amount of people to deploy their crop so that they can harvest their crop. So they have to borrow serious money. They didn't care what they were paying. They only need the extra workers for a few months, and they pay it back. So that's really how the cash advance market really started thriving. That farmers still today use cash advance.
There are farmers, I didn't know that, but I know that sort of from credit card processing, so on and so forth. And what we did is we started our own fund, brought it to the public. We funded companies, we put on a platform, and allow syndicators from around the world to partake in those deals with a huge upside. So we only charge a small syndication and management fee on the platform. You, as the syndicate investor, are now partaking and getting all that upside on the deal.
It's super interesting. Have you found success by creating this platform, and have you used your marketing ability to expand it and grow it?
So we started about 2.5 years ago. I have used my quote unquote success, thank you very much, in the marketing to expand it. But the first really 2 years, we were tightening those screws, really putting everything into place. In the past few months, we just burst out by our seams to get it out to the market and tell everybody, we're ready for you. In the beginning, we do 1 deal a month, 2 deals a month, 3 deals a month. Now we're doing a few deals a day, putting on our platform, and we have hundreds of syndicators signed up, investing in these deals, and literally they're getting their investment paid back daily into their wallet, and the experience all around has been insane.
I love what you're saying, and there was a very interesting thing that Mark Cuban says. He says, when you start a new business, the first thing that matters is can you sell? Can you sell? That means, can you market? Can you get to customers? If you can't get to customers, you might have a great product, but it doesn't make a difference.
It's hidden back there.
Exactly. It's hidden behind the fake brick wall. It doesn't make a difference.
Wait, this is fake?
This is fake. This is fake. It's a secret. It's a secret. But it's really amazing. It's really incredible what you've done. So it's amazing. And that's a great story for people to understand. Make sure you can market. You might have a great technical product, but if you're looking for a teammate, if you're looking for a partner, find a partner that actually knows how to sell and market. Do not start a business until you actually have that. That is a serious warning for people, because you'll waste a lot of money and you'll lose a lot of money. I hope I'm wrong, but this is really what it is. We say all the time, and Warren Buffett says all the time, Warren Buffett's number one skill. What's Warren Buffett's number one skill that he announced?
You tell me. I don't know.
He can sell.
He can sell.
That's what he says. So he says when he goes into something, the whole world thinks that he's a super genius, so he can move it. That's what he says. It says his number one can sell. But anyway, going back to this, tell us, I really appreciate what you're doing, and tell us a little bit where people can find you. How can people get connected with you? I mean, I love what you're doing for Israel. I love what you're doing for the Jewish people. I love what you're doing with culture and business and all this other stuff. Where can people find you?
So, of course, on Instagram at Kosher Guru, now verified, thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Making me finally make that move to
$13 a month.
Yes. Get verified. Merchantmarketplace.com. Watch all the explainer videos, get signed up, reach out, merchantmarketplace.com, understand what you're getting yourself into, do all your due diligence. It happens to be a great platform if you're looking for a very different investment tool and platform to use to try something different out there.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Resilient Riches.
Resilient Riches, everybody.